the 17th of October, 1978. That was the day Carol Bonnet's body was discovered. He was 61 years old, an employee at Clarkson Hospital in Omaha, Nebraska. Someone had stabbed him inside his apartment, stolen his wallet and his car, and left behind a taunting note for the police. For 33 years, that date meant only one thing: the day Carol Bonnet was found dead on the floor of his downtown apartment, with no one held accountable. Omaha detectives recovered fingerprints from the crime scene. Good prints, clean prints from a bathroom door, from beer cans, and from the medicine cabinet. They had every reason to believe those prints would solve the case. But in 1978, there was no national fingerprint database. There was no way to search millions of records at once. The only option was to compare prints by hand, one suspect at a time, and hope for a lucky break. That break did not come for 3 decades. When it finally did, it came from a database that didn't exist when Carol Bonnet was alive. It was triggered by a fax from a law enforcement office in Florida and confirmed by DNA technology that hadn't even been invented at the time of the murder. And the sentencing? The 17th of October, 2011, exactly 33 years to the day after Bonnet's body was discovered. The judge handed Jerry Watson a life sentence on the same date that Carol Bonnet's life had been taken, some cases close. This one came full circle. This is the story of Omaha's oldest cold case, how it remained unsolved for a generation, and how a single fingerprint preserved evidence and one determined crime lab technician brought it back to life. If this is your first time on the channel, Unsolved Chronicles covers the cases everyone thought would stay buried, and the people who refused to let them. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Before Carol Bonnet became a case number, before his apartment became a crime scene, before his name was filed away in an evidence box, he was a person. Carol Bonnet was born on the 13th of January, 1917. By the fall of 1978, he was 61 years old and living alone in a downtown Omaha apartment. He worked at Bishop Clarkson Hospital, one of the oldest medical institutions in the city. Every description of his home was the same: orderly, neat, the kind of place that reflected a man who kept his life in control. Downtown Omaha in the late 972nd was very different from today. The old market district was still developing, its brick warehouses slowly transforming into shops and restaurants. The streets around Clarkson Hospital were lined with apartment buildings and small businesses, a modest neighborhood where people walked to the corner store and recognized familiar faces. It was the kind of place where a working man could afford rent and walk to his job. Bishop Clarkson Hospital had been part of Omaha since the late 1802nd. By the 1172nd, it was a respected medical center employing hundreds of people. Bonnet was one of them. His exact role isn't recorded, but he was dependable enough that when he missed work, people noticed Bonnet lived quietly. He went to work, came home, and mostly kept to himself, but he also had a social side. He was a regular at local bars and was known as generous, sometimes overly so. He bought drinks for others, talked to strangers, and occasionally let people stay at his apartment or borrow his car. He owned a 1964 Buick, which he sometimes lent to acquaintances. That generosity said a lot about who Carol Bonnet was. He trusted people. He opened his door, literally and figuratively, to those in need. In another story, that would make him admirable. In this story, it made him vulnerable. By October 1978, at least 2 men had stayed in his apartment recently. One of them had access to his car at the time of his death. Bonnet's life was simple and routine, like most people's lives. But on the 15th of October 1978, that routine was shattered when he failed to show up for work on the 16th of October. No one was alarmed yet. But when he missed another day on the 17th of October, a coworker decided to check on him. By then, it was already too late. On the 17th of October, a concerned colleague contacted the apartment manager and asked them to check on Bonnet. The manager knocked on the door, no answer. He knocked again, nothing. Then he looked through the mail slot. Inside, he saw Bonnet lying face down on the floor. The manager immediately called for help. When emergency responders arrived, they forced the door open. Carol Bonnet was found unclothed, lying face down. He had been stabbed once in the upper left abdomen, a single wound, but fatal. The autopsy later determined he had been dead for more than 48 hours. Placing the murder around the 15th of October, the apartment told its own story. Normally neat, it now showed signs of a struggle. Newspapers were scattered. Beer cans filled the sink and trash. Cigarette butts were everywhere. Towels with biological evidence lay near the body. The telephone cord had been cut deliberately. His wallet was missing. His car was gone. There was no sign of forced entry. Whoever killed Carol Bonnet had either been invited in or had a key. Given Bonnet's habits, detectives believed he had willingly opened the door to his killer. Then there was the note. Written on a piece of newspaper in blue ink, it read, "I am leaving this crime with only one clue. Find it yourself, pig." Below it, "Die, pig." And at the bottom, a single word, "Helter." That note changed everything. This wasn't just a robbery. The killer was mocking the police. He believed he was smarter than every detective who would investigate the case. The word helter carried its own meaning. In 1978, Charles Manson's crimes were still fresh in public memory. Whether intentional or not, the reference added a chilling layer to the crime. And for 30 years, the killer was right about one thing: no one caught him.